Hi, Rama. It's week 14, day 5 of our Bible narrative reading plan. Today we come to the end of the story of Samson, the end of our time in the book of Judges. We are in Judges chapter 16. At the end of chapter 15, verse 20, it tells us that Samson judged Israel in the days of the Philistines for 20 years. And so 20 years passes, time passes between chapters 15 and 16, and it's easy to kind of run right by that. We're just getting snippets in the life of Samson. We're not getting a detailed biography. But as we begin chapter 16, we're told that Samson goes into a prostitute, again reminding us of the flaws in Samson's character. And then it continues telling us that Samson falls in love with a Philistine, remember Philistine being enemy, a Philistine woman named Delilah. This is the name that we associate with Samson. Samson and Delilah, perhaps their relationship begins in love. It says that he falls in love with her, but yet Delilah is quickly approached by Philistine leaders, and they tell her that if she will find the source of his power, the source of his strength, then they will each pay her 1,100 pieces of silver. Now that's a large amount of money, and so whatever her feelings towards Samson are, they are quickly overtaken by greed, and so she attempts to seduce Samson to find out the source of his strength, the source of his power. And Samson will tell her lies, and then she will tell the Philistines. The Philistines will come attempting to capture Samson, and Samson breaks free. And this happens 3 times. Each time she comes to him saying, you're lying to me, you're mistreating me, you've mocked me. And yet she's the one seeking to trap Samson. It's very strange, and just reminds us of Samson's lack of character in this area. This is a definite weakness in his life. And so eventually the text says that she presses on him, the same way that his first wife pressed on him for answers to secrets. And so Samson has this weakness where he will not stand up to the women in his life. And so she asks him again, and eventually he tells her that the secret of his strength at least appears to be in his hair. And so while he's sleeping in her lap, she has his head shaven, and he is captured. He is taken captured by the Philistines, and so now he awakes. He thinks, I'm going to do like I've always done. I will go out as at other times and shake myself free. One of the saddest verses, Judges chapter 16, the end of verse 20, he did not know that the Lord had left him. You see, the source of Samson's strength was not his hair, it was in God. God was fighting his battles. God was giving him strength. But now the power of the Lord has left him because of his sin. And so the Philistines see Samson, they gouge out his eyes, they bring him down to Gaza, and they bind him with bronze shackles. One commentator says that sin blinds and then it grinds. And so Samson is now grinding at the mill in prison. But, the end of verse 22, the hair of his head begins to grow again. So we're thinking perhaps something good will happen in Samson's life. Now in verse 23, we get the end of the story. The lords of the Philistines, they gather to offer a great sacrifice to Dagon, their king. And they say, our God, their God, not their king, Dagon, their God. And they say, our God has given Samson, our enemy, into our hand. And Samson calls on the name of the Lord. Verse 28, he says, Lord, would you please remember me, and please strengthen me only this once. Perhaps this is the time that Samson shows true faith. Remember, he's recorded in Hebrews 11 as showing faith. We've seen that he's a mixed bag. He's not someone that we would want to aspire to be like. Samson has great flaws, but yet here he calls on the name of the Lord, and by God's strength, God uses Samson to once again exact judgment on the Philistines. He pushes the 2 pillars, and the weight of the house comes down, and it crushes so many of the Philistines. And so God uses this flawed, imperfect man, Samson, to bring judgment on God's enemies. Now, our reading plan doesn't have us going through the rest of the book of Judges, but if you have time, take a look at it, because you will see that even as things have been dark and dim in the book of Judges so far, they continue to get worse. Chapters 17 through the end of the book are a bit of an epilogue, an addendum on the end of the book, letting us see more examples of the heinous nature of the sin in Israel. And there's a refrain that keeps coming up. There was no king in Israel, and everyone did what was right in the sight of his own eyes. That's the refrain, is that everyone is doing what is right in their own eyes. This is a reminder, this is the way the author of the book is pointing us to the fact that Israel needs a king. And as we keep going in the story, we're going to see that they get a king. but ultimately they need the perfect king, Jesus Christ, the only one who will perfectly rule and reign over them. Here's a summary of today's reading. For more information, go to tunemyheart.org.